Good day to everyone. So, welcome back to another video lesson that we have. And welcome to our part two of the discussion about the direct and indirect speech, which is our lesson number 5. Now, to begin with, or to carry on with our discussion, we shall first have a review or recall of what was discussed on the previous video. Now, you have there the two types of speeches. You have the direct and indirect speech. So what is the difference between the two? First, direct speech contains the exact words of the speaker. Indirect speech, on the other hand, is the reported version of what the speaker said or mentioned. Likewise, we also discussed that there are two parts of the direct speech. Now, in the given sentence, it was divided into two parts. The first one is your introductory part, which, take note, the introductory part contains the speaker or the speakers and his or her or their action. Now, in this given sentence, Olivia is the speaker and says is her action. So aside from introductory part, we have the quoted part. And the quoted part is what the speaker or the speakers mentioned. Also, you have to take note the presence of the punctuation comma, which separates your introductory part from your quoted part. And also the presence of the quotation mark, which encloses your quoted part. So what makes direct speech distinct and recognizable is the presence of the comma and quotation marks. From your learning task 2 on page 21 of your module, I extracted 2 of the 10 sentences given. So I chose sentence number 1. And as we have discussed, this is classified as direct speech. Now, what made this indirect speech? First, you have there the introductory part. Ray, speaker, writes the action. And you have there the quoted part. To see is to believe. More so, aside from it is divided into two parts, you have the presence of the comma separating the introductory part from the quoted part, and of course the quoted part is being enclosed by quotation marks. And also I chose sentence number 3, which is classified as indirect speech or reported speech. Now you have there the presence of that because we omitted or we deleted comma and quotation marks. So that is the one separating your introductory part, Jonathan said, from the quoted part, he joined the TikTok dance challenge. So this more or less, the one with blue underline is more or less the quoted part in the direct speech. So also we are going to review on the first rules, or the rules in changing direct speech to the indirect speech. So first one, the changes in tense. Remember, those tenses in the direct speech will be changed into the following tenses in indirect speech. You just have to know your tense of the verb. Next is the changes in time. Next is changes in pronoun. Also, you have there changes in place. Take note of those. And we also discussed or previously discussed rules in changing statements direct speech to indirect speech. First, the quotation marks and comma are omitted. The verb in the introductory part always follows the subject. And third rule, the verb in the introductory part retains its tense. Rule number 4, the word that is often used before the indirect speech. That is to replace the comma and the quotation mark, separating your introductory part from your quoted part. So given the example, you have there the presence of the word that. Number 5, so the pronouns change according to the context of the direct statement. So I already had given you the changes in pronoun. As for rules number 6 to 10, when it comes to changes in verbs, now you have there the table present, the direct speech to indirect speech. So direct speech is further classified into 2 columns. You have there the introductory verb and the quoted verb, whereas in the indirect verb, of course, you only have there quoted. Because what you're going to change is the verb in the quoted part, not the verb in the introductory part. So whatever the verb of introductory part will remain the same. Like for example, in rule number 6, if the verb is in the present tense, both in the present tense, so the quoted part will remain the same, still in the present tense. Number 7, or rule number 7, if the verb in the introductory part is in past tense and the verb in the quoted is present tense, so we are going to change that present tense into past tense. Number 8, if the verb in the introductory is past tense and the verb in the quoted is is also past tense, that verb in the quoted from direct to indirect will be changed to past perfect tense. Rule number 9, if the verb in the introductory is in the past tense and the verb in quoted is in the future tense beginning with will or shall, so in indirect speech, you're going to change that will to would and shall to should. And last, rule number 10 for statements, if your quoted part expresses general truth, universal truth, fact, habitual actions, so there will be no change in the verb. Whatever the verb is used, so most probably the verb is in the present tense, so that would also be in the present tense when you are going to change it into indirect. So moving ahead with next is 4 sentences expressing commands or requests. So when you are changing direct speech to indirect speech, specifically if the sentence is a command or a request, the verb said is changed to told. The infinite verb, so the infinitive verb is to plus base form, is used instead of the imperative form. Like for example, to talk, to sing. So to plus base form. You are not allowed to say to song, to talked, to talks, to sings. No, that's a big no-no. Always remember, to is followed by a base form of the verb. So you have there next is 4 commands. Still for commands and requests. Number 3, the polite words please and kindly are omitted when you are changing it into indirect. Like for example, Vincent said, Mary Joy, please give me a cutting from your plant. So when you're going, take note of the verb said in the introductory part, you have there the kind word or polite word please, and you have there the verb give. That is the imperative form of the verb. When you say imperative, the base form of the verb in which commands someone to do that particular action. Now, when you're going to change that into indirect, now you have there Vincent told, we are going to change said to told, Mary Mary Joy, to give. So you omit the word please and you change give to infinitive verb to give him a cutting from her plant. So remember the change in the verb. That is for commands and requests. So you're going to have there infinitive to give, to plus base form. Next type of sentence is, of course, asking questions. What are the rules to observe? Rule number 1, the rules in tense, sequence, and pronoun changes are the same as those used when changing direct statements to indirect statements. So whatever the rules in the change in time, change in place, change in pronoun, change in what else? What was that? Change in tense will also be observed in the questions. So when reported, a yes or no question is introduced by if. So what is a yes or no question? It is answerable by just yes or no. Now, for example, are the mangoes sweet? Ronald asked. So you have there the yes or no question. Are the mangoes sweet? Yes or no? So that is a yes or no question. The verb is are. So when you're going to change that into indirect speech, you have there Ronald, because Ronald is the speaker, asked. So that is the verb of your introductory part. If, because you are going to start with the question. If the mangoes were, why were? Take note from are, which is present tense, we change that into past tense. So that's why we have where. Aside from that, mangoes is plural. We are not allowed to use was. So Ronald asked if the mangoes were sweet. Take note of the changes. Next, number 3. When reporting a question that calls for a choice, it must be introduced by the word whether. So when you say choice or option, you are given an option. Like for example, Robert Charles inquired, do you like coffee or milk? You have there. The verb is do like. Take note, the tense of the verb is present tense because of the word do. And when changed into indirect, you have there, Robert Charles inquired whether you liked. Why liked? Past tense. Because the verb in the direct is in the present. So from present, we're going to change it into past tense. So you have there, Robert Charles inquired whether you liked coffee or milk. Next, number 4. An information question, when reported, has the same question word as that used in the direct question. The question word who, what, when, where, why, or how serves as the link between the introductory part and the reported question. The subject in the reported part is placed before the verb. So the information questions are questions asking for a specific information. It is not answerable by yes or no. Like for example, when will we go to Lolo Gian's farm? Gerald Anthony asked. So you have there the word when to indicate that that is an information question. And you have there will go in the simple future tense. Now, if we are going to change this into indirect speech, you have there Gerald Anthony asked when they, why did we use they? Because of we. We are not allowed to use we because you are reporting it. You cannot include yourself. So they would go because you're going to change will to would to Lolo Gian's farm. Again, take note of the changes. Rule number 5. The tense change in the quoted part of an information question follows the tense of the helping verbs do, does, or did, not the main verb. So as I have told you, the helping verb or the auxiliary verb do, does, did is the one or are the one carrying your tense of the verb, not the main verb. They are always followed by base form like do sing, do dance, did sing, does sing. So that's it. Now you have the example. In the direct speech, where did Adrian go? Asked Jamie. So you have there the verb did go, which is in the past tense because of the word did. Now, if we are going to change that into indirect speech, you have Jamie asked, which is correct, where Adrian went. Is it correct? The verb went? Because did go is already in the past tense. So the correct answer, Jamie asked where Adrian had gone. Take note, the verb in the direct is past tense. So if we are going to change past tense into indirect, it will become past perfect tense. So had gone. Another example. Yumi asked, where does Jomalyn live? So you have there does live. It's in the present tense because of the word does. So you have there, Yumi asked where Jomalyn lives. That's wrong. Still lives is in the present tense. So there's no change. So if we're going to change present tense of direct speech to indirect speech, we are going to use the past tense. So what do you think is the past tense? You have there, Yumi asked where Jomalyn lived because the past tense of does live is lived. Practice drill. So each direct speech in the exercise is followed by a corresponding indirect speech. Complete the indirect speech by filling in the blanks with the correct verb and or pronouns. Number 1. So this is the indirect speech. So you have there, Miss Morales says, there's no change in the verb in the introductory part. That heredity and environment are. There's no change because in the direct speech, says and are both in the present tense. So there is no change at all. The two most important factors in person's development. Next, number 2. So this is the indirect speech. So you lack 3 important information. So you have there, first one is asked Roy what qualities he, when you say did inherit, had inherited. From did inherit, which is past tense to past perfect had inherited from, are you going to say from your mother? But from his, because Roy is a male. Next, number 3. So this is the indirect speech. You lack 2 information. So your verb, Roy answered that he, instead of I, you're going to use he because we are referring with Roy. You cannot say Roy answered that I. No. It is not you who is speaking. It is Roy. So I, which is said by Roy, will be transformed into he because you are reporting that to someone. That he, so inherited, had inherited, because inherited is in the past tense. So you're going to use to transform it into past perfect. Had inherited. His mother's, you're not allowed to say my because that is Roy's mother, not yours. Next. Number 4. So this is the indirect speech with 2 lacking information. So you have there, Miss Gab added that. Are we going to use we? Are we included in the conversation? No, we are not included in the conversation. We are just reporting about the conversation. So instead of we, because we are not included, we shall put they, plural. The change in pronoun, take note of that. That they, you have their verb, will discuss, would become, would discuss more about the effect of heredity and environment on a person's growth and development. Last example. So this is the indirect speech. You have there 2 lacking informations. Miss Gab told, we use told because the sentence is a request. So from said, you're not allowed to say said, but we're going to change it to told. Her pupils, because she was talking to her pupils. You have there, we are going to omit please, to bring, infinitive, to bring pictures of your parents. Can you say your parents? No. Their parents the next day. Again, tomorrow, you're not allowed to use tomorrow, but rather the next day. So that ends the discussion about the rules in transforming direct speech to indirect speech, having statements, commands or requests, and questions. Now, as for your exercise, change each direct speech to indirect speech. Write your answers on the space provided. Don't forget to write your answers in the test paper provided or the test papers provided. So, thank you very much. Good luck in answering. If you have any questions, feel free to send me queries. Thank you very much.